Coach, just overall a heck of a season this year. Just what can you say about your first in the WHL with this group?
Yeah, I think we obviously proved to a lot of people that we belonged in the league. I think there was a lot of questions going into the season. A lot was made of obviously we had a strong program here for decades, well before I got here, and but now this is a different beast going to the Western League and how it would translate. And I think in a lot of different areas we showed that, like I said, that that we belong, more than belong. That we contributed to the league in a lot of different positive ways. I think, and I hope, and that people look at it that way. And on the ice, off the ice, both.
What's next for you? I mean, I'm assuming that once the season ends, the work doesn't end. So
No.
what's next?
Yeah, well, I mean, today we'll do our exit interviews and kind of get we've got a pretty good feel of who's coming back and who's not, and then we got some tough decisions as well, obviously. And then next week you get right into the draft. I think it's Wednesday, Thursday next week we got the draft, and then we'll have a development camp with a lot of the draft picks over the last season and this season, beginning of June. I think it's 4th to the 6th, and then that's about it. Then you kind of get everything kind of in place for next season, and you kind of get on that hamster wheel and do it again, right? So it never ends, as you mentioned. There's always something. My president role obviously has to oversee our business staff, who's doing a really good job of trying to get take advantage of the positive vibe in the city right now. And you saw in the playoffs, like, we had really good attendance all year, but then in the playoffs it grew again, over 4,200, and now we want to take advantage of that and try to make sure that we're capturing some of these people that are maybe first timers or had been away from the rink for a while and that fell in love with the team again.
What was your first message to the group after Tuesday night when you all came together for the first time?
Yeah. After the game, you're saying? Yeah. I think just I was proud of them, and I mean they gave everything they had, and we were a team that I think we had some challenges throughout the year, and we found ways through them as far as we weren't ladled with a bunch of first-round NHL picks, and we competed and found ways to win in different ways, and different guys stepped up. And I think a lot of it had to do with the care for each other. They really enjoyed each other. They enjoyed the program. And when you love something and you have a passion for it, you can really do a lot of great things together, and that's what they did. And for me, it was the biggest thing I wanted to thank them for was, and I think I speak for all the alumni of this program, is that I think we were always really proud of how we conducted ourselves, the accomplishments of both winning and moving players on, and how we did it. And I bet if you talk to a lot of alumni, even myself as the guy that kind of leads the ship, and in our ownership too, there was probably some fear that, like, are we going to still be the Penticton Vees? And these guys allowed us to still be the Penticton Vees of, and they protected our brand. They protected, what we stand for, and probably was the hardest. They were tasked with probably one of the harder things that any Penticton V team has ever been stuck with, and that goes back into the 60s. So it's, I just wanted to thank them for their efforts and even how they finished off, like there was no quit even when we were down 3-0.
Talk about your captain, Nolan Stevenson. He was 3 years with the program. You give him the C to lead the WHL team. Just what do you love about that guy?
Oh, just, he's obviously a real serious, mature kid. And, the cool thing about him is he had been around the Western League growing up by Swift Current there. And so he knew kind of what the transition was going to mean. And for me, having the 5 guys, starting with Nolan that came from our Vees team in the BCHL was really important for me to make sure that when all the things we just already talked about, just how we conduct our habits on a daily basis, and which means your culture, and was intact, and they did a really good job of explaining what our day-to-day looks like, and what it means when we win, when we lose, when we travel, when we represent this city, that logo, like how we act.
Can you just talk about what it was like on Tuesday when you realized that's it, that was the end of the season, and some of these players will never wear a Vees jersey ever again.
Yeah, it's tough. It's emotional. It's all those things. Hockey is an interesting sport because it's not a short window. Like you basically come together at the end of August, and here we are playing right to May again. Our organization's played into May about 6 straight years now. It's a long year, and so anybody that puts an effort into something that that spans that kind of time, it's the biggest thing our guys give up. Everybody thinks it's a privilege to play, and it is, but at the same time, they're giving up one of their most precious commodities is their time, and so. For me and Graham, it was even more than 8 months because it basically was a culmination of from the two Novembers ago when we were trying to, when we realized, hey, we wanted to try to get in the league and that whole process and the, going through the expansion draft and all these different stepping stones, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's done. And it's, so you sit there, you're a little emotional, you deal with it, and then the way I'm wired is kind of the next day you wake up and go, okay, we got to pick ourselves up and what's next.
Yeah.
Maybe speak to the fans and how much of a factor were they during this playoff run, playing deep almost into May?
Yeah, no, they've always been great here, and I think one of the cool things about us going to the Western Hockey League is I think we had gotten a little, stale's maybe not the right word, I don't know what it is, but it just complacent, stale. Like we had won so much the last few years that it became a little ho-hum at times, and I understood that. And so I think the move to the Western League really refreshed not only our organization but our fan base. And then it really took another step as the year went on when people got to really see how strong this league is, not just our team, but the teams that are coming in here, the players that are coming in here. That was the whole sell to the city when we talked to the city about moving to this league, and I just thought, like I said, the crowds were outstanding all year, and then it really took another step in the playoffs, which you averaging over 4,200 fans in the playoffs, and you have some weekday games where in the past you wouldn't draw that great, and you have over 4,000 both in those last, even when you're down 3-0. And just how they responded after the game, like how they sent off the guys, like it was pretty cool. And, people, like the players notice that, and it gets around. People in the hockey world notice it, and it gets around. And that's why the next group of guys want to come here. Like we're going to have some pretty cool big signings in the next 24 to 48 hours that has a lot to do with it. These players were following our playoff runs and watching on Victory Plus what it looks like to play in Penticton in front of these great fans, and that's hockey players want to play. That's part of player development, playing in front of big moments, in front of big crowds, and where it matters, and it definitely matters. It always has, but you can see that it's taken another step here in the city.